basically, you run some tests on them and you let them into your pizzeria. Again, keep in mind that this pizzeria is a front. It's kind of like you're luring them all into this little trap, and what happens is at the end of all of this, Henry reveals that this was all part of his plan, and he burns down the pizzeria. Yeah, I think it's really a bittersweet ending because everything is destroyed in that, and I believe you're burnt too. Michael is also your soul is also released, and the dialogues that actually happen are actually really beautiful. He explains to his daughter in kind of like in a sad but also kind of, this is where I was trying to explain that it kind of hits home a little bit. He explains that he's sorry that he couldn't be there that night, and the cool thing is, and my guy, I think you could agree, is what he said to Afton.
Henry basically addresses William and tells him that he shouldn't keep the devil waiting, old friend. There's a special place in hell waiting just for you. It's just because after all these years and all the pain that William has caused, it's just kind of poetic that he's finally gone. He's like a blight on the earth that's just been wiped away. Yeah, and Henry also alludes a little bit to the fact that Michael has wanted a way out. He is trapped in the pizzeria as it's being burnt down, but he doesn't necessarily feel trapped. It's almost like he's being set free along with all of the animatronics.
Obviously, Henry could probably see this walking corpse being like, "Oh yeah, we gotta take care of you right now." So it's like, you suffering, my lad.
It's for everyone listening, is basically the end of the timeline for all of our major characters except two. After Pizzeria Simulator comes Custom Night. Now, what Custom Night basically is, in terms of a game, is it has 50 animatronics in it, and it's just a big Five Nights at Freddy's game. Each animatronic has its own mechanics, and you're just trying to survive for longer and longer with more and more animatronics. It's like a sandbox mode of Five Nights at Freddy's with the whole gang there. Now, in this game, we play as William Afton in the afterlife, and he's being held there against his will. He cannot cross over. He's just trapped in purgatory, reliving the death by animatronic over and over again. And the person who's keeping him there is none other than Cassidy, the vengeful spirit. It's almost sad in a way, because he or she, Cassidy, I'm not exactly sure, but they're just so angry that they themselves refuse to cross into the afterlife and be at peace. They'd rather sit there for all eternity with their murderer, just putting him through torture over and over again. And there's really no conclusion to it. It's a little bit interesting. We mentioned earlier, I'm not sure if it was the previous episode or not, the crying child is sharing the Golden Freddy animatronic with Cassidy. We were led to assume in Five Nights at Freddy's 3 during the Happiest Day minigame, which is on screen right now, that all of the original animatronics from the missing children's incident in 1985 were put to rest. We see all of them, including Golden Freddy, passing over with the help of Charlie and the puppet. So we think the crying child is free and that he's passed over and is finally at peace. But we don't have firm confirmation on that. We hope that he's not trapped as well with those two, but it's one of the dangling mysteries of the whole franchise, really. Something interesting that I've noticed is that obviously William was a terrible person and likely a terrible father. We see it with Michael. When he was young, he was a bully, and he was constantly terrorizing his brother. We see with Baby, we aren't really sure how Elizabeth acted, but she actively went against her father's orders, and Baby ends up becoming very manipulative and Ennard can't stand her to the point that he ejects her from the body, and she has to fend for herself again. She is also a very problematic child. And then there's the crying child, who is obviously has emotional issues with all that he's seen. It's just kind of like you see all of them have their own problems, like psychological even, that they're not good children, Elizabeth and Michael. And sure, Michael ends up atoning, but really the crying child was a pure soul that came out of a terrible family. And it's very much like Cassidy, and it's kind of poetic that the two of them ended up inhabiting the same body.
Yeah, honestly, when you think of it like that, it really is.
Yeah. And, I think that brings us to the very end of our timeline.
So just to wrap up, Daniel, why don't you give the Lunchmates just one last recap of the timeline of what we've talked about so far?
All right. So at the very beginning, the triggering moment is the death of Charlie Emily in the late 70s or possibly early 80s at the hands of William Afton. The crying child, the youngest son of William, sees this and is terrified of Fredbear's family diner from that point on. In 1983, Michael accidentally gets the crying child bitten by Fredbear, and he enters a comatose state. During this time, William finds out that Charlie's inhabited the puppet, and he starts making plans to see how to give life himself. The crying child dies at a certain point, and eventually William ends up stuffing 5 innocent children into the suits in 1985 of Freddy, Bonnie, Chica, and Foxy, and maybe Golden Freddy. We'll have to get into that in the next episode. So, this is a trial run that prompts him to create the sister location animatronics, who are specifically made to harvest children and the remnant within their souls. Unfortunately, on the very first attempt, Elizabeth, the only daughter to William, is captured and killed by Baby, and those animatronics are decommissioned underground. William then tells Michael, the eldest son, to go underground to find his own answers, and that's where he gets used as a skin suit by the amalgamation that is Ennard. And Ennard, along with Michael's body, escapes onto the surface, where he vomits out the animatronic into the sewers. Michael goes on as a husk to various pizzerias, including the FNAF 2 location, where the Bite of 87 occurs, and 5 more murders from William Afton. The animatronics, the withered animatronics, that have been kept in the back room of FNAF 2 are sent back to the FNAF 1 pizzeria. William goes back there to get the OG animatronics remnant, but there, they corner him in the back room, and he retreats into his old trusty Golden Bonnie suit, but the spring locks fail, and he dies. Supposedly. 1983 rolls around, and that's FNAF 1. This is where it all started, but it's also close to the end of the timeline. 30 years pass from here, and in 2023, Michael takes a job as the Fazbear Fright location, where he reunites with Springtrap, aka William Afton, and burns it to the ground. Unfortunately, Springtrap escapes. Then Pizzeria Simulator rolls around, and Henry has hired Michael, and the two of them lure in animatronics, the only ones left, which are the puppet in the body of the capsule Lefty, Scrap Baby, who was ejected from Ennard, who's taken on the new persona of Molten Freddy, and finally Springtrap himself, and they are trapped in the vents and burnt, along with Michael. And that leads us to the final moment where Cassidy, the vengeful spirit, traps William Afton in Custom Night in purgatory and never lets him pass on, torturing him over and over to see the animatronics that he had used to torture so many lives before that.
Thank you for taking this time to sit with us at the Faz-eteria Table. Any last words, Daniel?
I just want to say, once again, like in the first episode, all of this is strictly for the love of the franchise. Anything that happens outside of this, the games, they don't really have any bearing on our feelings towards this lore because really it's built a really great community behind it. So I just wanted to say thank you to the community, and we will be continuing in the next episode.
So, hope you guys all enjoyed that. It's again Alec and Daniel on our own theory for the FNAF timeline. Hope you guys had a great time, and we'll see you next time.
Oh, yeah.